Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Vaijanta Anand, Associate Professor with Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work, affiliated to University of Mumbai. Today I am going to talk about the module Introduction to Skills for Community Practice, which is part of the course Community Organization, which again is a part of the subject Social Work Education. The objective of this particular module is to get a comprehensive understanding of what exactly is the meaning of community practice, what is the role of a community organizer or a community practitioner, and what are the skills which are required to become a successful community practitioner. What exactly is a community? We have earlier also try to understand geographical or functional communities. So community is a group of two or more people who have been able to accept and transcend their differences regardless of the diversity of their background, that is social, spiritual, educational and all that. And this enables them to communicate effectively and openly and to work together towards a goal identified as being for their common goal. So a group of people coming together, with common goals, keeping away their diversity, forms a community. So it's a relatively self-sufficient population residing in a particular area, a limited geographical area, bound together with the feeling of unity and interdependence. In this kind of a today's society, we also talk about a virtual community. All of us are invariably part of some WhatsApp group or for some or the other reason a group which is virtual. Okay. So it might be an online community where a group of people interact primarily via communication media such as newsletter, telephone, email, instant messages rather than face to face. So, for social, professional and education other purposes, like you might look at Facebook as a via media where you reach out to various kinds of journalists and various kinds of practitioners, community practitioners, and develop a web of people whom you have never met but who are able to provide information to you with regard to various issues related to which you are working in the community. So American sociologists defined community as a group of people who are socially interdependent, who participate together in the discussion and decision making, and who share certain practices, both define the community and also are nurtured by the community. Community work, community organization, community practice may be used interchangeably, or they may each have their own meaning. Community practice embodies four major processes: development, organization, planning and purposeful action for bringing about a social change. Community practice includes work to improve the quality of life and increase the social justice through social and economic development, and community organizing and social planning and progressive social change. So, in community practice, one may visualize efforts which have been put in by the practitioners, which affects the individual groups and communities, people who are there in the community. There are four central processes of community work. The first is, you are looking at it, these are the processes which might be, different from each other. So one process is which is going towards development of the community, and the process is where you are looking at organizing the community. The third process may be where you are looking at planning in the community, and then you are basically looking at progressive change. You might also look at it as consequent to each other, where you say community development, then you organize the community, then you plan, and then you bring a progressive change. Okay. Development is where the focus is on empowering citizens to work in united ways to change their lives and environment in relation to their living condition or economic condition or social employment or employment opportunity. Organizing is a completely different process altogether, where you are looking at process of community organizing, where you engage citizens to bring in social change which they perceive as some kind of a problem. You bring people together and you initiate a process of social change which can be social, economic and political kind of change. Planning, which relates to social planning engaged in by citizens advocating, people who are advocating, or it might be voluntary sector or organizations which may come and design a program for the community. And when you're looking at progressive change, encompasses the actions taken by groups to bring some kind of political or economic change into the community. So what exactly is a community practice? It is community organization is a technique for obtaining a consensus concerning both the values that are important for the common welfare and the best means of obtaining them. Okay, community practice is a work to improve the quality of life for families and the communities and to increase social justice through social and economic development, community organizing, social planning and progressive social change. Community organization, as defined by Kramer and Kramer, community organization refers to various methods of intervention used by a professional change agent to help the community to come up with the action system which is composed of various groups or organization engaged in a planned collective action which brings a kind of a change or resolves some kind of problems by using democratic systems of values. What is the characteristics of community organization? You have to ask these questions. What? It is an approach to complete range of process from identification and objectives to its achievement with the help and participation of impacted community. The second aspect of it is how. This covers the range of systematic purposeful actions where the community rallies together, work unitedly, and this requires special skills set for their effective use. The third one is the application of the knowledge to achieve planned change. In its absence, desired objectives are unlikely to be achieved. So there are two levels. One, it may be non-spontaneous. Okay, the pursuit of identified objectives and continuous process of the community organization base. So you are looking at, it may be non-spontaneous and it is based on the social capital of the community. What is the purpose of the community practice? Well and Gamble provides us with a set of 8 purposes. One is improving the quality of life of the community members, extending human rights, advocating for the community rights, social and economic development, service planning for a new or a re-emerging need or new class of specific needs, coordinating human services for communities in need, political and social action to protect vulnerable sections of the communities, and social justice to achieve equality and opportunity. What is the role of a community organizer? The goal which needs to be achieved is basically pursued by a community organizer. So this particular community organizer is a very important person because he is the one who is basically, he or she is the one who is initiating a process where the community gets organized. So what is the role of this particular community organizer? He or she may start with rapport building, that is developing meaningful relationship in the community with the people. He or she may engage in participatory learning because while doing community mapping or when they are doing assessment, community assessment, need assessment, both are learning. People in the community are also learning and the community organizer is also learning. How the person does this? By using need assessment, as I rightly pinpointed. Once the need assessment is done, the community organizer's role is to prioritize and analyze and pick up 1 or 2 particular problems which need to be worked on. So once these prioritizing of these particular problems happen, then one has to form objectives, because your objective defines what exactly are you going to do with regard to this particular problem. Because sometimes a problem may look very small but may have different dimensions. So it is very depends on the organizer who is able to pick up one particular dimension one at a time to be able to establish himself or herself in the community and is able to start this process of community engagement in resolving the problem. So the community organizer's role is also planning an action, which he or she doesn't do himself or herself. The community organizer is supposed to engage people at every single step in the community organization. So planning, definitely the community organizer's role is to engage the community in planning for the action. So mobilizing of the resources and implementation of the people, keeping community engaged in the whole process is something which the community organizer should be able to do it. Okay, and it does not stop here. Once the program is getting implemented, immediately the community organizer need to get detached from the involvement in the program implementation and look at monitoring and evaluation aspect. That means the community organizer is also involving, reflecting again and again with regard to the program implementation aspect of it, how effective it is, how participative it is, who are getting involved, who are involved in the entire implementation process, is it achieving its goal, if not, how strategies need to be changed, or what different ways can be utilized to improve the quality of the programs which are being implemented. Let us look at all of this little more in detail. When you are saying positive rapport with the community, building a positive rapport in the community, one has to develop trust without any biases with regard to gender or caste or religion or region. And this is not easy because the community organizer has to find an entry point which may not be neutral all the time. Okay, but community organizer also has to see that they are not excessively relying on one source of information. So if he or she has chosen youth as an entry point, it would be good to also extend themselves to youth from various smaller communities or diverse communities which are there in that community, as well as look at other groups like adults, or look at women, or look at elderly population in that community, because it will not be possible to engage the entire community in a process of change if you are sticking to one particular group or one particular community or a pocket of a community. Participatory learning through community profile. Whenever community profile is information is being gathered for community profile, which involves exact description of the community, so then you are also challenging, you are also pinpointing the challenges which you will face probably. So mapping the challenges is also very important. If you are working in a community which has diverse religious communities involved, so you are also putting a challenge, a kind of mapping of challenge, that if we any kind of services are being provided or any kind of change process is initiated, both the diverse communities need to get involved in implementation, otherwise it might lead to the situation of conflict. If you are doing need assessment, if the community organizer is also involved in need assessment, one has to go below the layer of felt need. Look at actual need of the community as against perceived need. Okay, which is very important, because the needs which people may mouth or tell you that this is a need may not be the actual need of the person. Okay, prioritizing of the needs is also very much essential, because there might be list of needs, and with the help of the people, the organizer has to come up with what are the needs which need to be met immediately, which can be mitigated at first level itself. Suppose you are working on the issue of malnourishment in a tribal community or in a village. You know that the lack of livelihood options or lack of income is leading to lack of food or nutrition in the in the daily diet, which is leading to malnourishment. But probably when you are working, you realize that just now the number of children dying of malnourishment have to be reduced. So probably some kind of food programs have to be initiated to take care of the children who are under the threat of malnourishment. Then probably later on, the crop pattern, or water harvesting, or looking at the way people have been utilizing natural resources and all that can be looked into in detail. So one has to prioritize and say, okay, do I want to get involved in just now seeing to it that number of children malnourished are reduced, or am I more interested in long-term kind of goal where I come up with a solution which will show impact after 5 years. These are some of the decisions which the community organizer takes with the help of the community. Some important role of a community organizer is analyzing the problem, looking at the root causes, analyzing the cause and effect, framing of the objectives, because the objectives need to be broken down and looked at. What action plan are you preparing? It depends a lot on how you prioritize the needs and what exactly are the action plan you are going to develop. So, and how are you going to implement? Suppose in a group of construction workers, you have got permission to take skill training program, but you're also concerned about the accident rates on the construction site. How will you get the component of safety and responsibility which the builders need to take in terms of providing safety equipments? How will you get this component become part of skill development? Probably you will do a skill development training program, but add a component of safety with it, so that workers become aware that okay, I go into dangerous kind of situations because I am not provided gloves, I am not provided gumboots, or I am not provided rubber slippers if I am working in the electricity. I am working with naked wires, so that is what is leading to accidents. This subtle way of probably including the programs may lead to a group of empowered construction workers who may at the time of accident pinpoint faults which are there, which are not looked into by the builder, and this may lead to a permanent or a kind of a solution where safety equipments are given to the workers and the accident rates are minimized on that construction community. So evaluating and modification, evaluation is done after implementation and feedback is taken, and successful program where you feel that this has led to some kind of change in the community are taken up for further implementation in or expansion of the activities in the same area or in other areas. What is the understanding of the skill? So skill acquisition can be defined as a form of prolonged learning where through many pairing of smaller stimuli with particular responses, a person can begin to develop knowledge of how to respond in certain situation. So you learn how do you respond to a larger situation by getting engaged in resolving smaller situation. So skills can be defined as any combination, according to Renault, useful to industry of mental and physical qualities which require considerable training to acquire. So skills as goal directed, well organized behavior that is acquired through training and performed with economy of efforts, is also called a skill. What is the difference between skill and competency? Competence may relate to personal models, outcome models, or education and training models, as well as to the standards approach in which benchmarking criteria are used. So the different uses, 3 different uses are outcomes, vocational standards describing ability of people in employment, tasks that people do, describing what currently happens, personal trait or characteristics which include describing what people are like. So competency is basically knowledge plus skill plus attitude. That is, key competences are context independent, applicable effectively, in different institutional setting, occupation and tasks. What are the skills required by the community practitioners? The practitioner role versus intervention approach. This is adopted from Rothman, who has written it in his book on community practice in 2001. So what is the approach? What is the role of the practitioner? If it is locality development, then the role of the practitioner is more of an enabler, catalyst, coordinator, teacher of problem solving skills and ethical values. So you are more of an enabler, you are more of an catalyst, you are an outsider trying to develop that locality. But if it is social policy planning model of community development, then you are a fact gatherer, you are an analyst, you are program implementer, and you are expediting the process of community program implementation. But if the role of a practitioner is more in community action model of community development, then you are more of an advocate, you are an activist, you are agitator, you are broker. So depending on the approach of the community development which the organization probably had got engaged in, your role changes. So your role in a community development is more of an expert, whereas in social policy planning you are more of a researcher, or you're a person who is bringing all the data together to come up with a proper plan. But social action, you are much more than just enabler or fact gatherer. You are more of a person who is standing up for particular kind of issues, taking a stand, and you are with the people trying to bring kind of transformative changes in the community. What are the skills required? If it is this is the model which was developed by Well and Gambles. What are the skills required is, if you are looking at practice model, neighborhood and community organization, if you are working in neighborhood and community organization, then your role is more of an organizer, facilitator. The skills required is of educator, coach, trainer. You are like a bridge, or you are a builder, building of the capacities. But if you are engaged in organizing functional communities like construction workers or labor communities, you are an organizer, you are a facilitator, you are educator, and you are also involved in communication kind of skills which are required. If you are looking at socio-economic and sustainable development, you are implementing socio-economic programs, you are again a facilitator, organizer, program analysis or problem analysis you are doing, and you are basically planning and delegating certain tasks. If you are engaged in inclusive program development, you are planning, organizing, you require communication skills, you are doing budgeting and reporting. If you are engaged in communities and social planning, you are definitely engaged in planning, organizing and community development. If you are into building effective coalitions, then you are an advocate, you are bridge building and organizing the people around issues. If you are engaged in political and social action, the skills which are required is activism, advocacy and communication skills. And if you are part of movements for progressive change, definitely the skills of activism, advocacy, planning, organizing, confronting or resolving conflicting issues, all these kind of skills are necessary for a community practitioner. So, what are the broad categories of skills which are required by a community organizer? Interpersonal and communication skills, critical analytical skills, advocacy and mobilization skill, management and program management skills, social perceptiveness and self-awareness, and adaptiveness. So, what you need to understand is the skills of a community practitioner is basically, comes from what is the role performed by the community practitioner. So depending on the kind of role the person, the community organizer performs, the skills need to be looked at. Okay. So in summary, what can be said is said that, if your role is of an advocate, or you are engaged in social action and you are engaged in a transformative change and talking about social justice and inequity and bringing a equitable kind of a society, definitely your skills will be more of a mobilizer, more of a advocate, more of a critical analysis. If you are engaged more in terms of social planning, or if you are engaged in locality development, you are more of an expert, enabler. You need to have more of skills in research, or skills in evaluating or program implementation, measurable programs which one can see the impact of a program after certain period of time. And if you are engaged in community organizing, like organizing people around issues, you need to have skills with regard to remaining in the community, building rapport with the people, understanding the pulse of the community, evolving community-based organization who will be able to take up the issues and develop sustainable community development approach. So in conclusion, community organization is about identifying issues and objectives and then working to achieve those objectives. It is about enlisting community participation and rallying the people around the issues that they face and identify with. And it also involves increasing the level of trust among community members. Community organization practitioners must play multiple roles. They are mobilizer, they are advocate, they are problem solver, analyst, thinkers, motivators, planners and implementers. So community organizer is also required to possess multiple skills. They should be able to relate from person to person. They should be able to relate to the community. They should be able to empathize with the people's problems faced by the people. But at the same time, they should have capacity to communicate, represent the problems to the outsiders, and they should also have a keen evaluation capacities where they are able to monitor and reflect their own role in the community. So to do all these things, one has to not only look at the e-text which is given, which elaborates many of these things, but also look at all these skills which probably are there in you, or you might have to learn those skills, or you might have to be more into the community practice with some other experts, so that you can emulate and learn the skills from the experts who are already been there in the community for a longer period of time. So thank you.